Right. Good evening, members. Oh, I've got a very big echo. Which is coming from the screen. Yeah, it's very echoey. Oh.
There we go. Picture perfect.
Take two. Oh yes, that's better. Good. Okay. Right. Thank you. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Members, officers. Very nice to actually see you all this evening, and also welcome to any members of the public watching via the YouTube channel. I'd also like to welcome Councillor Bowers, who is attending the meeting virtually. This is only the second in-person meeting we've had. We had Planning Committee on Tuesday, and it's the first hybrid meeting, so a little bit of a dress rehearsal maybe for Cabinet on Monday. Just for clarification, although Councillor Bowers will be able to take part in any debate, ask questions and so on, he is not able to vote on any item because he isn't actually present in the meeting. Those are the rules. But he is certainly here listening in, and as I say, will be able to take part in any debate, which is very good. And now all I have to remember is how to actually chair a meeting in person rather than virtually, which is not as strange as it may sound. We had Planning Committee on Tuesday, and I think Councillor Scattergood, the chairman, found it slightly odd, although actually it went extremely well, extremely smoothly. But yes, it feels a bit different. Right, let's start on the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. I have apologies from Councillor Hume. Councillor Horner is running a little late, but is on his way. Everybody else is here. Item 2, declarations of interest. Does anybody have any disclosable pecuniary interest, other pecuniary interest or non-pecuniary interest relating to items on the agenda, having regard to the code of conduct for members and having taken appropriate advice where necessary before the meeting? Yes, Councillor Abbott.
I've personally made representations to the local plan and may again appear at the Section 2 examination, depending on what the inspector wants to do. And I'm chairman of Rivenhall Parish Council, which has made a number of representations, and I will be raising an issue relative to Rivenhall tonight. Thank you,
Councillor Abbott. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Thorogood.
So I've forgotten how to use this. I forgot.
Right, you're not alone.
Right, I think this is on. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I also made some representations to the local plan but that was part 1, wasn't it? When it came before the inspector the first time. Coggeshall is mentioned a couple of times. The neighbourhood plan, which went to referendum on Thursday last week, which I was able to vote on. So I thought I'd just raise that. And also the flood alleviation scheme is mentioned, and I am a supporter of CRAC, which is the Coggeshall Residents Against Quarry. I'm not on their committee, but I do support their general aims. Okay.
Okay, that's fine. So you are intending to vote, and it's an NPI you're declaring?
Yes. Yes, if that's all right.
Right.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Butland.
I think I'm on. Yes, Madam Chairman, I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Essex County Council, which clearly is featured in terms of education provision, etc. And I was, and in fact I may still be, because I think we're in the position I was a director of North Essex Garden Communities Limited, who were involved in the Section 1 garden area. That is in the process of being formally wound up, but I'm not absolutely certain at this moment that has been done. So as a precaution, I will declare that interest as well.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. I guess, oh yes, sorry, Councillor Cunningham.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Could I declare a non-pecuniary interest now as a member of Essex County Council, who I mentioned? Thank you.
And Councillor Thorogood.
Yeah, I should do the same.
Yes.
Thanks.
I thought that was coming fine. I guess probably for clarity, I should declare an NPI as I used to attend the NEGC committee meetings and forums and so on when it comes to the local plan, but that will be an NPI. Think we're done with declarations? Good. Minutes of the previous meeting. Members, this is minutes of the meeting of the, it says here planning committee. It doesn't mean planning committee, does it? It means local plan. It's all right. Local plan subcommittee held on the 20th of April. Can I record those as being correct? Would somebody like to move? Yes, Councillor Buckland, and second, Councillor Cunningham. Thank you. And actually sign these. Okay. Item 4, public question time. We have no speakers this evening. So now move on to item 5, Local Development Scheme 2021 to 23, an update. And I'm going to go to our officer, Alan Massow, for this. Alan, over to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spray. A local development scheme is basically a project plan / timetable for the production of the council's local plan and other associated development documents such as neighbourhood plans, supplementary planning documents, things like that. It sets out estimated timetables for key points in the production of those documents, including consultation points and an estimate of when the document is likely to be adopted. The purpose of this report is to update the Council's local development scheme in the run-up to the Section 2 examination later this year. This version of the LDS has been updated to reflect the local plan Section 1 adoption and is also including the estimated timetable for the Section 2 examination as well. This version of the LDS replaces the one which we adopted in December 2020. And the recommendation is at para 2.1. Thank you.
Thank you, Alan. Right, does anybody have any comments or questions on this? Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. There's 4 things. A couple of observations and a couple of questions. Page 12, it's a statement in the obvious, I know, but I think for the benefit of the public, it's worth saying what a messy, confusing situation it is to try to work out which policies apply, because we've got bits from previous documents, bits which have been taken out, where it sets out. And so, I mean, that emphasises the need for us to get the local plan done so we have a single, clear document with supporting documents. Second thing is, on page 16, the timeline for how we've got to where we are now, that it's taken far too long because of the problems with Section 1. The third thing is page 17, where it says supplementary documents and design guides. You probably guess what I'm going to ask. Where's the Silver End Conservation Area? Should that be in there? It's not listed. And where is it anyway? And I think you're the 5th Cabinet member I've raised this with. And it continues to be a major problem for people in Silver End. So I really would like some clarity and movement on that. And the 4th thing is on the, it's got 2 numbers there, page 10 or 18, whichever one it is. Rickstone's Neighbourhood Centre. There was a development brief prepared in September 2010, so that's nearly 11 years ago. As I've raised with officers, that area, and as of the district ward members, is in a terrible state. Are we going to get an updated briefing movement so that we know that that area is going to be redeveloped or improved? Because it really is very run down now, and it's been like that for a long time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. I'll ask Alan just to respond to 1 or 2 of those. With regards to the Silver End Design Guide, yes, I take your point absolutely. I think the last update I had, which I gave you, was probably back in February, that there was a plan for a conversation to start and some meetings involving myself, you and officers, and police services at county have been, been asked to instigate this and to get it underway. And I haven't had an update since, but I will get something for you. but I don't know whether Alan's got anything else on that. And can I just ask you to come back on those points, please?
Okay. Yeah, I don't have any further update on the Silver End matter, but we can arrange to find out some further information for you on that. Rick Stone's, yes, there does need to be something done with that area. I believe that that would be something which our asset management and strategic investment team would be taking forward. I am aware that there are private landowners involved in that as well. I'll be quite happy to provide an update to Councillor Abbott separately to this meeting.
Thank you. If I may, Madam Chairman, could I just
Yes.
also, though, clarify, in that list of documents, shouldn't the Silver End be actually in this paper? Shouldn't it be mentioned, or have I got that wrong?
It's not technically a DPD. I think, yeah, I mean, it's something we could certainly consider adding to it. I'm not aware of what sort of the budgetary situation is for conservation areas or appraisals, things like that. I believe we are sort of finalising our final conservation area appraisals, and I don't think we've had any further budget allocated to appraisals at this time. So.
Councillor Abbott, I will chase up on the Silver End Design Guide because, apart from anything else, it would be nice for you not to have to keep asking the questions and for me not to keep getting them. I'm as keen. It is well overdue. I'm aware of the issues. So, yeah, we'll see what we can do on that. Councillor Bowers has a question. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chairman. Thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Just a question of the officer. In page 24 of the report, or page 16 of the actual document, under the review part, 7.4, it does mention that any subsequent reviews will be done on a rolling programme, and about reviews may be necessary through changes and monitoring and that kind of thing. I just wondered, will reviews be set out as like a set period, or how would a review actually be sort of set in place, kind of thing? Do we agree that, or is that just as and when we feel that might be necessary? I didn't know whether we would need some clarification on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bowers. Alan?
We normally have a duty to review local plans every 5 years. So that would be the normal review period. I'm sure members are aware that we've just had the Queen's speech, which talks about the planning white paper, and that will probably involve a fundamental review of how the local plan system works, including the potential for rolling out a new type of planning system, or the zonal planning system. We don't have any detail on that as yet. The last information I've had from Chief Planning, the MHCLG's officer, is that it's going to take at least 2 years for the necessary legislation and regulations to be produced. So obviously that's well within the 5-year periods, but I expect we will have to be producing a new local plan relatively quickly once the new system has been developed and is in use. So I would expect a relatively quick review following on from what happens with the planning white paper.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bowers, does that answer your question? Do you want to come back?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Thank you, Alan.
Right, anyone else? Yes, I have several. I'll go to Councillor Everard and then Councillor Thorogood.
Thank you. I might be missing something here, but there was movement to try and get the inspectors to wake up and start earlier. What happened there, please?
Are you referring to the local plan,
yes.
section 2?
Yeah. Sorry.
No, that's all right. Can we? I won't forget you've asked that, but can I just leave that until the last item on the agenda, which is an update?
Okay.
And I can say something then. Is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay, fine.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorogood.
Yes, so on page 11 of the report, or page 19 of the agenda, it refers to the neighbourhood planning. Fearing is working towards regulation consultation, and I believe Kelvin has submitted their neighbourhood plan in February. Do we have a time frame of when it will go out to consultation, and is this delay normal?
Right, Alan?
Yes, Kelvin did submit back in February. We had an issue with the election purdah period, which has delayed the consultation quite significantly. We are working at the moment to get the document ready for consultation. We should hopefully have that available within or a date available within the next 2 weeks or so for when that consultation will start. For Fearing, we are expecting the submission document shortly. Parish Council will send us those documents. Hopefully, the delay there won't be as big a delay on that. However, I would caution that during the run-up to the local plan examination, there will be a lot of there will be a lot of competing interests with preparing local plan examination documents and preparing the neighbourhood plans for consultation. So we'll get them out as quickly as we can. That's all I can say to assure members on that.
Yes, Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On the point of neighbourhood planning, it is identified on page 17 of the report to page 25 of the agenda as being one of the key risks. Can the officer just give assurances that if there are numerous referendums and, as we can see by the plan of neighbourhood plans, that that risk with the is there a contingency plan in place for staff, or is that something that may be dealt with if that does occur closer to the time? And looking at the risks involved, the majority seem to be at a medium risk. Are there any, would you say, that more so are riskier than others, and which ones do you think we need to pay more attention to? Thank you.
Right, thank you, Councillor Wrench. Alan?
They are, I think, as they are, the level of risk has been assessed. All three are medium risks. As I've just talked about, the supporting neighbourhood planning we currently get support from the RCCE, Rural Community Councils of Essex, and they are helping us primarily with the pre-production of neighbourhood plans. So they liaise directly with the neighbourhood planning groups. That will continue, and as the RCCE is separate to the local planning team, there wouldn't be an impact on that process because it's handled separately. The key delays occur when the local planning authority has to produce these documents. If there will be a delay with the local planning authority producing documents for consultation, we would expect, say, there would be no impact on things like the Regulation 14 consultation, which is the initial consultation carried out by neighbourhood plan groups and parish councils. That should be unaffected. We would still expect to be responding to those consultations as well. So there would be some officer time required for that, and we normally take Regulation 14 responses to the subcommittee as well. The delay would usually occur at regulation, or between Regulation 15 and 16, so submission to consultation. Once we have the consultation, however, done, that's a sort of a 6-week period where we don't really have to do much, so that frees officer time for 6 weeks to concentrate on other things. And then after that, you usually get a sort of a 4 or 5 week period where an independent examination takes place, and that often does require some support from officer level. So it is, it's a situation that will most likely, from an officer resource point of view, will be a little bit critical June, July time, I think, as we run up to the local plan examination. So after that, I anticipate we'll be able to get things running a little bit more quickly. But we are trying to get these neighbourhood plan consultations out the door as soon as we can, so as not to delay the process any further.
Thank you, Alan. Right, anyone else have any questions? Let me just check. No? Right. Okay, members, the recommendation is set out on page 5.2.1, recommended that the revised local development scheme 2021 to 23 be approved by the local plan subcommittee. Could I have a mover, please? Councillor Scattergood, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Cunningham. All those in favour, please, if you could indicate. Right, that is, oh, no good. Thank you. Thank you, members. That's unanimous. Good. Okay. Right. Okay, we move on to item 6, Surface Water Management Plan Update, which Julie O'Hara is going to present. Just to mention, we received an email, I think it was around about lunchtime today, sort of 1 o'clock, with a document attached, which is the background to this paper. It's about 74 pages long. I did have a quick look. I will confess I read the executive summary and I skimmed through 1 or 2 bits on it. It's quite technical, and I imagine, like many other members here this evening, I had other things going on today as well. So, yeah, I read the executive summary, but Julia probably didn't do it justice given the time, but I'm sure you will explain all in your presentation. Thank you very much. Over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. Before I begin the presentation, I appreciate that members have received the copy of the pluvial model update at lunchtime today, as Councillor Spray has just explained. And I appreciate that this is a lengthy document and that members will not have had time to read and properly digest it. The main content that members need to be aware of for tonight is the executive's summary and the main outcome of the report, which is that there have been changes to the areas designated as critical drainage areas. The majority of the reports which you received goes into technical detail about how the model was constructed and how the catchment area was chosen, and it goes into great depth. The main concern is what the model does and the outcome that it has for the surface water management plan and for our evidence base. The 2006 surface water management plan forms part of the evidence base for the Braintree local plan. This is an Essex County Council document which investigated and modelled areas at high risk of surface water flooding within Braintree and Whittam. It designated 4 areas as local flood risk zones, also referred to as critical drainage areas. These were mapped to show the extent of the predicted flooding over a range of different rainfall scenarios. Their depth and flow was modelled and rated according to the hazards that they represent. As an example, a moderate risk it would be classed as dangerous to children, the elderly and the infirm. Measures were identified to mitigate the risk within this 2016 plan, including site-specific measures such as bunds or areas for storing water, and recommendations on area-wide policies, and advice given as to how, if a development proposal was received, how it could be designed to minimise the impact of surface water flooding and not necessarily stop it. The report which committee is considering today update the 2016 report, and the main issue is that the hydraulic model which was used to generate the flooding, the areas of greatest flood risk in the 2016 plan, differs from the one which this report has generated for 2020. And the outcomes of the model differs, and this is what I'm going to explain to committee tonight. In 2016, three catchment areas were chosen to have the hydraulic model applied to them, to find out where in those areas the areas of greatest risk were. The original hydraulic model was applied to the three areas on the map on the left-hand side. And these catchment areas were chosen because there was a greater knowledge of the network on the ground in those three areas. Since then, knowledge of the network has improved and data sets relating to the water environment have been updated, and a wider catchment was thought appropriate. And this is shown in the map on the right-hand side. The new hydraulic water model was applied to this larger catchment, and the next slide show the differences in the results between this and the earlier reports. As you can see, there was only 4 areas designated in 2016. Now, the Bradford Street Braintree area remains as it was in 2016. The rerunning of the hydraulic water model showed a reduction in flood risk in Warwick Close, and that one has been withdrawn. The Spa Road Whittam remains the same, and the Rectory Lane Whittam one has had its boundaries altered, and we'll see that on a map in a few minutes. Two new areas have been proposed: Maltings Lane and Blunt Hall Road Whittam. The map on the screen now shows the Bradford Road Braintree outline in red, and the Warwick Close Braintree one in green, and the Warwick Close Braintree one has been removed. Spa Road Whittam does not change. Rectory Lane Whittam, the 2006 boundaries are shown in green, and the 2020 boundary is shown in red. Blunts Hall Road is a new area, and this is the area to the south of Blunts Hall Road and straddling the railway. Maltings Lane, similarly, that's a new area proposed in this report. And that is the end of the presentation.
Julie, thank you very much. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, I did have time to read the report, and it's deeply flawed and full of errors in respect of one of those zones. So I won't comment on the others because I don't know enough about them. But I do know a lot about the Rectory Road Whittam, or Rectory Lane Whittam zone as it's referred to. First off, Rectory Lane is in Rivenhall, it's not in Whittam. And it is a persistent tendency of this council and the county council to refer to that area as Whittam. Maybe it's something to do with all the development, which is meaning that part of Rivenhall is being subsumed into Whittam, I don't know. So that's the first thing, it's Rectory Lane, Rivenhall. The second thing is that the study is largely desktop. It does incorporate some of the local drainage issues, but unfortunately for that area, it completely omits all the main issues. And I have to say, I contain my anger at the amount of time I have spent talking to this council and to Essex County Council about why that area floods. And no one listens. No one. Maybe they'll listen tonight. The reason that that area floods is that there are channels, ditches, that run down Rectory Lane, which take water from along the John Ray Walk. And then they go down into the Forest Road area, and that links in with the other roads you mentioned, Elderbury, etc., which are in Witham. And the drains in that area and the culverts are defective. They don't have the capacity, or they're broken. And a lot of work has been done, including site visits, photographs. I've waded around in there in the floodwater myself, meetings with officers. We know what the problems are. One of the primary problems is there's an illegal private discharge, a very large pipe halfway up the John Ray Walk. And I use the word illegal advisedly because that's what the County Council told me it was. And until that discharge is prevented, there's a huge amount of water in heavy rainfall events pumping down through these ditch systems. So there are multiple practical reasons why the water heading down that system floods. When it gets to the bottom of Rectory Lane, which then becomes Witham, Forest Road, a culvert was inserted when the new footpath cycleway was put in from the Bellway development there. And I had to snigger when it says there's now greater knowledge and things have improved and development is designed to minimise flood risk. Well, it hasn't there. It's made it a lot worse. Again, I've raised with planning enforcement officers at this council that culvert floods and taken photographs, which then results in Forest Road flooding. Very significantly, actually, the bus stop floods all down the paths. This document refers to the need for attenuation basins. There's an attenuation basin being built in Forest Road. It's been there for 2 years, but it doesn't work, because it doesn't connect to the floodwater I'm talking about. So we know what all the local issues are in great detail, but no one at the strategic level is taking the slightest bit of notice and dealing with it. And until that happens, that area will continue to flood. So my request is tonight, talk to us as the local councillors, the residents who've been photographing and reporting this stuff for years, and the officers who've been to meet us, because they're the ones who know what the actual situation is. And when it says, I'll come back to this final point and then I'll stop. When it says development designed to minimise, when the Chapman School development application went in, as the county councillor at the time, I said, don't put any more water into that system. What have they done? They've put their surface water discharge into that ditch system. When the Bellway development came forward at Rickstones Road, I said, don't put any more water into that system. What have they done? They're putting more water into that system. They are making it worse, not better. So it really does grate a bit, when counties say, well, we design our systems to make things better. They do not. They have ignored us. So I'll stop there, but please talk to us. We know what the problems are and we know what the solutions are.
Right, Councillor Abbott, thank you. Julie, there's quite a lot there, which I'm sure you will take note of. Do you want to make the comment now, or take comments away and come back to Councillor Abbott, you or colleagues, at a later point?
I think it would be a good idea to get a better understanding of what you see the problems are, so that we could at a later date address the county with these. It would be good if maybe you could put something in writing, and we could have a closer look at it.
Well, I'm very happy to. I have on numerous occasions with photographs put things in writing, and nothing's been done. But I'm very happy to forward the material I've already presented to yourself. I'll make sure I email it to you. And I do hope this time, because I'm sorry if I get worked up, but it is frustrating when you see documents in front of you which don't bear any relationship to what we've seen. And many of the residents in Rectory Lane and Rivenhall have been quite frightened, actually, by particularly what's happened the last 2 winters, where we've had very wet winters and the water's come very close to flooding their properties. And my understanding is county takes property flooding as the highest priority to avoid. That's, if a field floods, okay, but that can be a problem. But if properties flood, that's what they're really trying to avoid. And we're getting to the stage down there where I think it's likely there will be property flooding, because the amount of water going into the system is getting higher, and the problems with the system in terms of culverts and pipes and the ditches are getting worse. So we've got both things going the wrong way, if you see what I mean. But yes, I'll forward you the material.
Thank you, Councillor. I would suggest if you do that and send it to Julie, any previous documentation you have, any updates, and I'm sure officers will take a look at it, and I think there needs to be some further dialogue with county by the sound of it.
Yes. One of the issues is that when floods are reported by members of the public, those reports go to the county council. In previous years, they used to come to us, and so we would know. But they go to the county, and we don't necessarily have as much information about what's happening on the ground as we used to.
Yeah, that's a shame, because I remember, was it about 5 years ago, we did have a very good programme with which BDC was involved with. We looked at precisely these types of issues, culverts and pipes. And I know Paul Partridge was involved with that, and it was really good. It was very effective, sort of joint working between district and county. So, I mean, to me, that's the sort of local solutions we should be looking for, practical solutions, rather than relying on rather theoretical documents, which sort of miss the point, really.
All right. Okay, Councillor, it seems there's a little bit of a communication gap here, which hopefully we can address. Councillor Butland, and then I think Councillor Bowers has indicated not to speak. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't pretend to know the area as well as Councillor Abbott, but one of the things he said which does cause me concern is about the illegal discharge. There should be no illegal discharges, and from what Councillor Abbott has said, this is not something which is new. So I wonder, could we also take that matter up as well? Because clearly, if that is exacerbating a difficult thing, we really ought to be taking and putting pressure on the appropriate authorities to take action.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. I'm sure Julie will note that. Councillor Bowers.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. Just a little bit of clarification on the action plan before us, because my understanding is this update was done in September 2020. On the timing, it says current project stage and all of the actions not commenced. But it does say start date 2020. But if the update was done in September, I just wanted a bit more clarification. Would they be expected of any start in 2020? Because there's no sort of month. It just seems that you're near the end of 2020 when the update's done, and we're saying the start date is on 2020. Unless I'm missing something that I don't understand, I just wanted some clarification on that, if possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Julie?
I'm afraid we don't have any clarification from the county as to whether they've started or not, but I certainly can investigate that for you and get back to you with the answers.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Right. Councillor Everard.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We've got a problem in Bocking. It's Church Lane near the bridge. It occurs so often, and it is really serious. Some years I keep complaining to the Essex County Council, but some years ago I managed to get them to bore through the pipe that takes it into the river. And that satisfied that for some time. But it is a problem which is completely ignored, and I would suggest that there needs to be another line into the river on the other side somewhere. I'd like that to be progressed.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Julie, you may not be able to answer this now, or you may be able to. I don't know if officers are aware of what sounds like a persistent problem.
I'm not aware of that problem in particular. Again, it gets back to reports that go to the county, but which don't come back to ourselves, so we don't necessarily know. Because the county council, as the lead local flood authority, they are meant to take it's their responsibility to deal with flooding matters. They are the primary authority, and if we're receiving complaints and problems, we can put it to them, but normally it would be them who would be dealing with it. But I will take those with the other issues and put them forward to the county.
Again, Councillor Everard, you might just like to drop Julie a quick email just so that she's got something on that. Okay, all right, fine. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My main focus here is regarding Warwick Close being one of the Braintree sites that has obviously been taken off. I suppose that can be seen as welcome news, but also just to have some assurances that that is the right thing to do, given that at the bottom of the Fairview estate there has been within the last few months some significant flooding, although be it on a floodplain, but Warwick Close is quite close to that area. So it's just a case of there's been a change, one of the only sites to be dropped off, just to see if that that residents may be listening tonight and just making sure that we've made that for those decisions are the right ones to be made at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. Any comment on that, Julie?
Again, I think it's really important that reports of flooding do get made to the county council, so that they do know what's happening on the ground. Although this area has been taken out of the critical drainage areas, flooding is something which is taken into consideration anyway as part of planning applications. It doesn't have to be in a critical drainage area to be looked at and considered. And again, it does need to be reported so that they know what's happening, because as part of anything else, this is a model which they've applied, and going forwards, they need to compare what the model's outputs, compare that with what happens in real life, and going into the future, that will help create a more accurate representation of what's happening, more accurate models in the future.
Thank you, Julie. Right, so I think the message is to residents and ward members: keep reporting problems. Obviously, to county, they are the lead authority on this. But if you don't get a response or any satisfaction, to let our officers know, because it is important that these things are recorded. Right, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? No, not seeing anything. All right, members, the recommendation is on page 27.2.1, that this committee approves the Essex Pluvial Model Update, Braintree and Witham, including the updated action plan for September 2020, as evidence base for the Part 2 of the publication local plan, and as a material consideration in the determination of planning applications. Could I have a mover, please? Yeah, Councillor Butland, yes.
That doesn't really pick up the points that concerns that members have raised. And I'm just a little bit concerned that we are approving a report where clearly a number of members of different parts have raised issues. I'd be guided clearly by you, Madam Chairman, and officers. Have we got the opportunity time-wise for this to come back to this committee with at least some responses to the points that have been raised? I mean, I don't want to put in danger of Section 2 in terms of time, but I do think there have been some pretty serious issues that have been raised.
Yeah, I do think that's a fair point. There have been some quite serious concerns raised. Could I have a view from officers on how we can manage this? Please.
If I may, I mean, this document is produced by Essex County Council, so it is their document. So it would be sort of down to them to make any changes. It is obviously based on that latest flood modelling. I acknowledge that there's a sort of a lot of local knowledge. I think there would have been benefit. There would have been a benefit if that could have fed into this report. I think a little bit more effectively. It is an update to an existing report from 2016, and one of the things we have to consider through the local plan, or one of the inspectors will be considering through the local plan examination, is that our evidence base is up to date, and this is clearly a more up-to-date piece of evidence, albeit with potential inaccuracies in it. I mean, I think what we would need to do is we do need to have a up-to-date evidence base. It does need to be robust and credible, and I think it would be worthwhile if we did raise these concerns with the County Council. However, I wouldn't want to delay the addition of up-to-date evidence, considering we are quite shortly to be in an examination situation. But I think it may be best if we do feedback to the County Council. However, as an interim position, I believe it would be best if we agreed the piece of evidence base, because I don't think we would be able to get a satisfactory answer from the County Council within the next 6 to 8 weeks, I don't think.
Okay. I appreciate the time constraint, and I wouldn't want that to delay Section 2 at all. I do think it's important that the points raised tonight aren't lost. I mean, I'm sure there won't be, but all right, I think what we need to do then is, if the subcommittee is willing to approve the recommendations on here tonight, but on the understanding that all the points raised are picked up and are fed back to county, with a certain amount of urgency, because one or two of them, particularly the points raised by Councillor Abbott, have obviously been around for a while and have not been addressed satisfactorily. Councillor Cunningham, sorry, did you want
Madam
to
Chairman, I appreciate what you've just said, and I also appreciate what Alan has just said, but a 6 to 8 week turnaround to deal with some pretty fundamental issues, bearing in mind this is an update of policy from 2016, did I understand correctly? I think there's a credibility gap here, which I think we need every avenue should be explored to breach that credibility gap with this, and I think perhaps that needs to be our recommendation coming out of this evening's meeting, that the County Council 6 to 8 weeks, really we would like we need a response on that, and we would expect the County Council to respond accordingly. I emphasise again, there's a credibility gap here that needs to be bridged.
All right. Prefer it then that we amend the wording of the recommendation. Well, it stays as it is, but with an addition that the points raised this evening are considered as a matter of urgency by county. Is that, Alan, is that doable? I'm just looking across to Kim, who is nodding.
I mean, we could also, as part of the examination process, perhaps raise with the Section 2 examiner that we are, the local authority does have some concerns with the report, but I mean, it is a report produced by the County Council, it's not the local plan.
Yes.
Report, but I think we've got quite easy solution would be to say that this is part of our evidence base, how we'll have the following concerns, just so the Section 2 examiner is aware of that concern.
I think that would be entirely appropriate to do that. So, Councillor Cunningham, would you like us to add a line to the recommendation this evening that says something along the lines of that the points raised by members, which have not previously been addressed, need to be raised with county? It's around
raised
the wording.
with county and request an urgent response.
And request an urgent.
Would that be proportionate?
Response, yeah. I think it's a very good point, because I don't want this lost in the system by county. I'm not suggesting our officers would do that. Councillor Butland, you made the point to start with. Would you be happy with?
I think I saw Councillor Abbott's hand twitch, so you may want to come in.
Okay.
My issue is really that we deal with it in a practical sense. Whatever we do, I don't mind really what the wording is, but whatever we do in a practical sense, we know locally what the problems are. In fact, Rivenhall Parish Council, and I've already declared interest, I'm chairman of that, is writing right now to county about the illegal discharge that's been there for years. And and I'll make sure that the clerk copies the district council in. So it's really whatever we can do that practically gets county to recognise what the actual issues are and deals with them, instead of, what is really a desktop exercise which has not identified the actual issues.
All right, well, I agree. I think if we can have something additional in the wording for the purpose of the vote this evening, but at the same time, if officers will take forward the points raised this evening, county for urgent action, I think that would be appropriate. Councillor Butland.
Could I suggest, Madam Chairman, that you may also want to pursue that on a member basis?
Yes.
To give added support to our officers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't think it would be out of place, because this is a very significant bit, and we don't want to go to an inquiry where we ourselves are not, because this will be our plan,
Yes,
not
yeah.
the county's plan, and we want it to be robust. And clearly, I'm not saying whether they're right or wrong, but I've heard enough tonight, at least to make me want to have some greater detail.
Yes, I'm perfectly content with that, and I think actually, as Councillor Cunningham said, there is a credibility gap here.
Certainly a perceived credibility gap.
Yes. Right, okay. Right, so now I'm just sort of looking over towards Kim. Where am I in terms of wording for the recommendation and the vote?
So in terms of the wording, Madam Chairman, I think that I'd be comfortable with the wording that you suggested, that that it includes the approach to Essex County Council to highlight the comments made as part of this committee.
Good.
And for a response to be requested on an urgent basis.
Fine, good. I'm happy
with wording.
I'm happy with that. So on that basis, and that I will also follow up with officers, and they will follow up with county. Could I have somebody to move that, please? Councillor Butland, and a seconder, Councillor Cunningham. Good. I feel happier about that. So can I have a show of hands, please? Does that meet with approval? Yes, it does. Unanimous. Thank you. Thank you, members. Good. Right. Okay. We move on to item 7, Braintree Infrastructure Delivery Plan 2021, for an update which Alan is going to give us. I will just mention that late afternoon an email came through which I think was sent, I'm not sure if it was sent to all members of the subcommittee actually, which was from Catherine Evans, Fearing Parish Councillor, raising a number of points on this item, and officers will be, just so that she knows, I don't know if Catherine Evans is listening in, but officers will be taking up those points as part of the review of the plan, so she can be assured of that. Alan, can I just pass over to you to present this, please?
Thank you very much. The Draft Infrastructure Delivery Plan Update, or IDP, is an important part of the Section 2 Local Plan Evidence Base, as it accounts for infrastructure which has been secured and sets out requirements for infrastructure to support the remaining allocations in the plan. This includes supporting key strategic growth locations at Fearing and Great Notley, and taking into account cross-boundary infrastructure development. The IDP was produced following consultation with public and private sector providers, who were provided with the Council's housing delivery pipeline and a list of remaining allocations in the housing trajectory. It updates the position of services and facilities since the publication of the last IDP in 2017, and it has a base date of the 1st of April 2021, and also takes into account the inspector's main modifications to the Section 1 local plan, including the removal of garden communities. However, developments which have been permitted since April last year will not have been accounted for by service providers. A range of infrastructure topics are covered, and these are comprehensively listed in the report. The two sections that have changed the most are the education and healthcare chapters, which have had significant updates, The transport, walking and cycling chapter was not completed in time, unfortunately, for the publication. This is now been received from Essex County Council and will be incorporated shortly, so that chapter will require a separate delegated approval. The document will also guide Section 106 negotiations for development management and demonstrate that the local plan allocations are deliverable. The draft IDP is published as Appendix 1 of this report, and the recommendation is to approve the infrastructure delivery plan update as part of the local plan evidence base to support local plan and information for planning applications as the recommendation set out at page 32. Thank you.
Sorry, Councillor Mrs. Scattergood.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Sprague. I think there's a typing error on the infrastructure schedule. It says that the new pylons across the valley are gas. They are electric. It's on, I don't know, it's page 62 or 97 because I've got both numbers on. Replacement corridors, Bramford, Braintree, Rayleigh, 400 kilowatts. It's two items and they both say gas, and I think you'll find gas doesn't go on pylons, it's electricity. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Kirkwood. Yes, I see what you mean. All right, we'll make sure that's amended. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have 2 points. First of all, my residents in Great Notley are somewhat surprised that they were going to get another 1,806 houses. Not because they wouldn't welcome, because all of them are living in houses that were built in the last 30 years, and they're not hypocrites. But they are somewhat surprised as to where you would get 1,806 houses in the parish of Great Notley. I think we've got a problem about the land. We sometimes refer to it as east of Great Notley. It could equally be north of Black Notley or south of Braintree South. But to call it Great Notley, I think is confusing and misleading. And I think we do, and it runs throughout the report in all the things. So it's on page 42 in terms of strategic housing, and it goes on through. So my request would be, can we actually describe that as exactly what it is? And part of it, of course, yes, it's east of Great Notley, but it's also east of Whitecourt, and it's also east of areas in London Road which are not in the parish of Great Notley. So that would be my first thing. The second thing is about health services. Very nice bit starting on page 69, but actually that's only part of the health services that deal with this district, because part of our district is covered not by the Mid and South Essex, but of course by the Colchester and Ipswich. So those living in, and I suspect, because I've just seen Councillor Scattergood look at me, I suspect possibly, although I think that also covers Bury St Edmunds. So certainly then I stick with Ipswich and Colchester. I mean, it is, I think, a real problem for the county of Essex that we are not covered by one integrated care system, but potentially by 3. And I know that the County Council has made very strong representations on that. But in terms of the health and social wellbeing chapter, there is no mention whatsoever of parts of the wards, parts of the district which are not served by that. And I think we should have that in. It's another major hospital at Colchester. There are X number of additional GP practices and GPs. And of course, through the recent COVID, many of our residents living in places like Civil Headingham actually had to travel across to Earl's Cone to be vaccinated, etc. So could I ask that the health and social well-being thing is actually references made to the fact that we need to take into account the Ipswich and Colchester. I forget its exact title. It's probably North Essex and Suffolk, is it? Or Suffolk and North Essex? Suffolk and North Essex. Yeah, so there should be, I think, Chairman, reference to that, please.
Right. Yes, I think that's salient points, Councillor Butland. Alan, is that
Osprey will
Very doable. I imagine it should be, hopefully.
I'll investigate that, and once we've produced the final document. Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll make those amendments, Councillor Butland. It's fine. Councillor Wrench.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. My point is raised towards the primary education section, which is seen on either page 59 and 60, more on page 60, Braintree North. It also touches on Councillor Butland's comments, because there may be a confusion here, but the one site that seems to be omitted is the Straits Mill development. We saw that relatively recently at Planning Committee, and there are numerous houses, but I do recall there being a primary school agreed as part of that infrastructure on that site, which isn't included in this report. Just to ease any confusion, that wouldn't be confused with the site east of Broad Road, which I don't think it is, but could be. Is that the Straits Mill development, or is that a separate site? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wrench. That's a very interesting point, because I think you're right that Straits Mill isn't in there, and there is a primary school plan for that, I think. It's all right. I'll just give Alan a minute to. See if he can find it. Yes, Councillor Everard. Yes.
Yes. There was talk of a school on the Panfield Lane site as well. I don't know where that's got to now.
Right.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just to confirm, that is included on the report on page 25 or page 60, the Panfield site development. Thank you.
Yes, you're right. Yes, it is. That one, that is in there, Councillor Everard.
If I may come back on the...
Yes, yeah.
It is the East of Broad Road site, Straits Mill, so that's included. So it's referred to East of Broad Road in the report. And if you look at the tables towards the end, there's reference in there to early years and childcare. 156 Place Nursery, co-located with New Primary School. And also 156 Place Standalone Nursery with some additional land. So that is in there. Panfield Lane is also listed for early years and childcare, again for a 56 Place Nursery co-located with New Primary School. This is, I'm looking at the table on page 99 of the agenda and 64 of the IDP P report.
Just find it.
Yes, there's also reference to the nursery at Towlands as well.
So, Panfield Lane, we've got the Straits Mill is on, you're saying page 99? Oh, right.
Yes, Straits Mill referred to East of Broad Road.
East of Broad, okay, right, yeah. Okay, Councillor Wrench, yes, it is in there.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Councillor Abbott.
Thank you. Well, firstly, Madam Chair, I was a bit concerned that the health and social well-being bit started with a picture of a skull, which I could remember from the Hammer horror film from about 1971.
Yeah. Yes.
Next, yes, I've got some issues with accuracy, but it may be because of the way I'm reading it. I don't think the figures for housing in section 106 are that clear. So I know possibly my concerns, it relates to Silver and Cressing, possibly my concerns, and it relates to the number of houses being built and GP health contributions. It might be about the status of the housing. It talks about pipeline, consents, allocations. The numbers to me for Cressing and Silver End don't seem accurate, so I won't, without going into too much detail, I won't go through why I think they're not accurate, but if they could just be checked. The second thing was, I think the list of infrastructure provision on page 1651, whichever way you want to read it, emphasises the way in which, again, local members are not always listened to. So, two things in there. One is contribution to Maltings Lane community building for land north of Conrad Road. Well, the site north of Conrad Road, North Witham, close to the edge of Rivenhall, is just about geographically the furthest away you could get from the Maltings Lane developments and the lodge developments at the south of Witham. The council closed the community building in North Witham, and the site's been developed for social housing. Very nice development. However, we now have a deficit of community buildings in the North Witham and bordering on Rivenhall area. And that really brings me back to my point about the shops at the Elms, because there is a pavilion building there. So we could be doing two things here. We could be improving that area as well as providing more of a community building. But I'd be interested to know how that was justified, how that money could be justified that far away from the community, so the money's been taken from a development and put in somewhere 2 or 3 miles away. The second thing is, for Cressing, it talks about the various improvements there, but the one thing it doesn't mention, and County refused this when we requested it, was a pedestrian crossing of the B1018. So housing is being built along the lane that joins the B1018.
Yes, yeah.
And the children from that development are going to have to cross if they go by foot. So we're going to get the footway put in, marvellous, but they're going to have to cross the busy B1018 to get to Cressing Primary School. County refused when we asked for Section 106 money towards a crossing there, which could even operate part-time for the children. So, again, I just make that point that we are, too often we're not listened to on these issues. And then finally was page 37/72. It talks about a new health facility in Witham being provided within the Grove Shopping Centre for a multi-practice partnership. My understanding was it was going to be in the Newlands Shopping Centre, unless something's changed.
Oh, okay.
And also my understanding is that a lot of the GPs don't want to go in there. And this keeps being mentioned, and I know the local MP, Priti Patel, keeps mentioning this, but it's not as straightforward as it sounds. And also, I don't know if that's factually accurate, and actually it's got the location wrong.
Okay.
Madam Chairman, I don't think there's been any suggestion of any, or even any talk of any proposals in the Grove Centre, so I think Councillor Abbott's absolutely right on that. Any
should be Newlands, yeah.
Potential health facility was as part of a redeveloped Newlands, yeah.
Okay, yes, officers agreeing with that. That's an error. It should be Newlands and not Grove. All right, so we'll amend that. Just to go back to something you said earlier, Councillor Abbott, you were talking about community facility. Is it the £200,000? Am I on the right line? Page 1651. Is that what you were talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I thought when this came up, I seem to remember when it came up at committee, I don't think I was on planning committee at that period. I might have got that wrong, but I seem to remember it was taken on board what I'd said at the time about the contribution going to the other side of town.
Right.
And
okay.
I'm not sure that that's completely correct. If it was agreed, then I think it's a shame. Not that I'm against the Maltings community facility at all. It's just it's on the very opposite side of town, and it wouldn't serve the people in the Conrad Road development, or indeed all the other houses that are being built in that area.
Okay. Alan, have you got anything to contribute on that at this point?
Other than to say it was probably a lack of more local opportunity to provide a facility. I think that was probably the closest available site to use that money for a community building. I think it's just unfortunate that that was the closest area that was available. I think, but I would need to look into it. I need to know a little bit more detail about that particular site, but I think that was just a case of the only available option at that time.
All right, Councillor Abbott, I think if you have to leave that to officers just to have a look and see why that decision was made. Okay. Councillor Bowers, did you have a question? Sorry if I missed you earlier.
No, I have got a question. No, that's fine, Madam Chairman. Yeah, it's just on one of the recommendations tonight is obviously to delegate approval of the transport section for by yourself. Obviously, I haven't got an issue with that at all. Just wondered whether are we going to get that circulated to members once we have that, or is it be part of the final plan that will be circulated? Just I presume we will get sight of that sometime, though completely have no issue with you approving it yourself, but just wondered when we will get that circulated. Thank you.
Fair question. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a fairly important part of the report, so yes, we'll make sure it gets circulated at an early opportunity. That's okay. Right.
Thank you.
Councillor Thorogood.
Yeah, just a couple of points. One's an error and one is an observation. On page 27 of the report, or 62 of the agenda, it says Section 106 agreement contribution relating to London Road in Coggeshall. I think that should be Colchester Road in Coggeshall, because there isn't a London Road, and that refers to the 300 homes that are about to start being built off Colchester Road, Coggeshall. And on page 44 of the report, or 79 of the agenda, in the flooding section, it refers to the flood alleviation scheme at Coggeshall as if the way it describes it is if it's a done deal already. The plans are yet to be submitted, but it describes it as a benefit. But that will be decided when it goes out to public consultation, and the communities will have a chance to say whether it is a benefit, or the quarry that will go with it, the 400-acre quarry, whether the benefit or whether the harm outweighs the benefit. But that isn't mentioned.
Okay.
So I know this isn't our report, but I do have a problem with that.
Right, Alan, do you think does that wording need tweaking? Yeah. Yes, Councillor Abbott.
If I may, I mean, from a technical point of view, I think I agree with that. I think from a technical point of view, the issue is that we are supposed to take account of proposals when they are either allocated or granted. And this site is neither allocated nor granted. It's not in the minerals plan, and it's not even an application yet.
All right. Take both yours and Councillor Thorogood's points on board, and we'll ask officers to adjust the wording in there. Okay. All right. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten what your first point was. Page 2762. What was that, Councillor? Coggeshall Road? No, sorry. London Road. Coggeshall. Oh, yes, I've got it. Yes, okay, I've got it. Did you? You got that? And okay, yeah, right. We've got that. Right. Anyone else? Any points or questions? Not seeing anything. Right, members, we've given that a pretty good airing. So the recommendations are on page 32. There are two: to approve the Infrastructure Delivery Plan 2021 update as part of the local plan evidence base to support Section 2 local plan and decision making for planning applications, and to delegate approval to me as the portfolio holder for planning and infrastructure to agree the transport chapter of the Infrastructure Delivery Plan and minor changes to the remainder of the text, and we will make sure that gets circulated at the earliest opportunity. Right, could I have a mover for that, please? Somebody? Councillor Butland and a seconder. Councillor Cunningham and Councillor Scattergood. Show of hands, please, if that meets with approval. Thank you, that's unanimous. Thank you, members. Right, we move on to item 8. Local Plan Section 2 Examination Update. This is a report just for noting, which Alan is just going to speak on. But before we do, Councillor Everard asked a question a bit earlier about the date for the examination of Section 2. It was at, I think, the February full council that we agreed we would approach the inspector to see if there was any chance of moving the examination forward. The inspector was contacted through the programme officer, which is the correct way to do these things. Both she and the inspector did have a look at their diaries. The inspector, our inspector, well, he's sharing the workload, I think, with another inspector, and they have, in addition to our examination, had Colchester's, Tenderings, and I think it's Castle Point's Section 2 to examine. They did look at their diaries. The response I got was that, unfortunately, he didn't feel there was any wriggle room for him to have a look at ours any earlier. At the moment, we believe it's going to be the start of July. That date has not actually been confirmed yet, but we've no reason to believe that it won't be. We haven't had any indication it's going to be later than that, so it's anticipated that it will be around the second weeks of July. Obviously, as soon as dates are confirmed, we will let members know. To be fair to the inspector, he did appreciate the point we were making and our anxiety around getting this underway fairly quickly, but came back and said no, he couldn't accommodate us any earlier than that, given the rest of his workload. So that's where we are on that. Fingers crossed, early July. We'll let everybody know as soon as we can. All right. Right, Alan, I'll leave you to talk through this paper.
Thank you very much, Councillor Spray. That was pretty much most of my presentation you just said there. So I will. Right.
Sorry about that.
I'll just provide a quick update. Okay. As Councillor Spray has just said, we haven't had the date confirmed as yet. There will need to be sort of a 6-week notification as to when the examinations will be taking place. We are continuing to produce documents as requested by the inspector. The most recent one we published was the Topic 2 housing paper. We've also made progress on a heritage impact assessment, which Historic England have requested. We have the draft of that in now, and we're currently producing statements of common ground as well, progressing that again with Historic England, some of the adjacent local authorities. They'll be published on the council's dedicated webpage as soon as they are available. That's pretty much what I've got, other than say we're still anticipating that the hearings will be virtual. We haven't heard anything else yet, and we will inform members as soon as possible as to when we have the start date, and I think more importantly when we get our matters, issues and questions, which will show the areas which the inspector is mostly interested in discussing, or inspectors at the hearing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Yes, I think the matters that the inspector is interested in are, well, hopefully will be with us fairly shortly. Yeah, I know officers are doing a considerable amount of work behind the scenes in preparation for this, and yeah, I imagine it's going to have to be a virtual examination. I can't think that it's going to be any other way, but whether it can be hybrid, might be good. Might be possible to do some of it in person. I don't know, but I think probably it's likely it's all going to be virtual. Right. Does anybody have any comments or questions on that? Yes, Councillor Abbott.
Yes, it's a shame that it can't be done sooner. Last time this was discussed, I think the group leaders, we all agreed as group leaders we hoped it could be done sooner, but at that point I don't think I didn't know for a start how many other examinations they were dealing with. That sounds like quite a handful. Yes. I don't think we've mentioned it tonight, but obviously the latest information we've got from our department on 5-year position and what they project to 2023 is encouraging. So I just thought that was worth saying. Yes. And thirdly, paragraph 4.1, there's a double negative in there, which I've looked at about 5 times, and I still can't work out what it means. Could that be clarified, please?
Yeah, that's a good, yes. Yeah, you're right. Yes, it's a bit convoluted. Yes, just while Alan's looking at that, your point about the 5-year housing land supply is good. It's just over the 5 years, so let's hope we can hang on to that because it is helpful. But yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah, point 41.
There should not be a knot.
There should not be a knot.
It's to note the progress below section 2 examination. As such, there is an understanding.
Good. Okay. Too many knots. Right. Okay. You just checked that Councillor Bowers, did you want to come in with anything? No? All right. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, members. Well, that report is just for noting. We have no urgent business under item 9. So that concludes the meeting for this evening at 7:20 or 7:22, depending on which clock. Oh, sorry, Councillor Horner.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to please accept my apologies for being late.
That's fine. It's nice to see you. Don't worry. Right, so 7:20, and I think we've had some pretty thorough discussion this evening. So thank you, everybody. Very nice to see you, and meeting is closed. Right, that worked well, I think.